We are going to be looking at this letter from the CDC. Imagine, and maybe this happened to you, you get a letter from the CDC in the mail, you get an email from the CDC tracking you down, and they want you to answer health information. The same CDC that wanted you to capitulate and become a human pincushion. So this letter came in from a Healthy American, and I'm going to read this to you. Let me know in a comment below if you have gotten anything like this. Imagine the high pressure language, the coercive language, making you believe that because it came from the US Census, well, let me show it to you. We're going to hop right on over here. And then I'm going to read to you the email that came in. And it puts me in mind of an email that I did, of a video that I did some time ago about the US Census and their nosy questions. I mean, why does the government have to stick its big fat nose in our business? Let me get that out of the way. And this is the CDC letter. It says that it comes from the United States Census. And in a moment, we're going to break this down. I'm going to tell you what I believe about it, how I would answer it. And I want to hear that from you as well. Before we do any of that, you are asking me about my youth serum because this is what my skin used to look like in my 40s. And I believe that my skin looks much better now, decades later. Yes, this is a couple of decades later. Actually, this picture was a couple of decades ago, and I had a lot of severe damage to my skin, from aging, but also from being out in the sun and from horrible dermatology treatments that I got. And I do believe that true beauty comes from a life well lived, but a little youth serum can help. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to look your best. I believe that taking care of yourself is not vanity. It's the exact opposite. It's self-respect, and it honors God and the body that he gave you, the life that he gave you. So you can find out more about this over at, let's see, I think I have it for you here. Well, it's at youthserum.com, and that's where you can read my entire skin story. And you can also get information from others that have used my product. And they are telling me that people are giving them compliments on their skin. And yes, this is me decades later. I'm not using a filter, but I do have a light here, and this is just my computer camera. But yes, I have wrinkles like anybody in my age group would, but the texture of my skin is much healthier. It is firmer. And of course, there is a nice radiant glow that I have gotten from using my handcrafted organic, I call it a botanical infusion because it's all natural. So if you want to learn more about that, you've been asking me, and that is over at youthserum.com. Let's get back to the program. And I have a little bonus for you at the end of this video, but let's take a look at this letter that came in from a Healthy American. So I'm going to share that with you. And her email came in with concern. She said, Peggy, take a look at this. They are trying to pressure me. They've got a QR code that they want me to use to respond to this. And she is saying that she is not going to participate. So there are several things that bother me about this letter. First of all, it's got the CDC logo and the United States Census. And people who are less, how do I put it, savvy than you are, might believe that this is an official document that has to be answered. So let's take a look at it together, shall we? Dear resident, a few days ago, your address should have received a letter requesting your participation in the National Health Interview Survey. And friends, my Healthy American who got this says, yeah, these are the same people that were pushing the injections, and they probably want to find out how much damage those products have done. The letter goes on to say, this survey is conducted by the National Center for Health Statistics and the U.S. Census Bureau. The data are critical to understanding the health needs of our country. If you have already responded to the survey, please accept our sincere thanks. If not, please respond as soon as possible by scanning the QR code or by going to the link. And then it says the information you provide is confidential. The NCHS and the U.S. Census Bureau are required by law to protect your information. Now, here's what's going to happen. People are going to read this sentence. The U.S. Census Bureau and the NCHS are required by law. Friends, some people are not even going to keep reading. They're going to see those words and they're going to construe that this document is required to be answered. Only at the very bottom here does it say participation is voluntary, but your address cannot be replaced. I mean, that sounds very contradictory. They want you to believe that your address is the one that's being targeted, and it is, and it cannot be replaced. People are not going to understand that. How do I know that? Because I get emails from people all day, every day, asking about how to protect their information. And they also get confused and they're easily bamboozled by these kinds of documents. And then it says we are not permitted to publicly release your responses in a way that could identify your household. Friends, we need to look at that sentence more carefully. Some people will read, we are not permitted to publicly release your responses. Yay, yippee-yay, they're not permitted to publicly release your response. No, that's not what it says. It says we're not permitted to publicly release your responses in a way that could identify your household, which means, yes, they can publicly release your responses. You have to read the entire sentence. And I know that many of you are critical thinkers and you like this kind of content so that you can continue to improve your critical thinking skills. And then it says, if you need any assistance or you have any questions, please call us here. So I know that you probably know how I feel about this survey. And the fact is, it is voluntary. Now, I made a couple of notes here, and you can read all of my analysis at my Substack, which is peggyhall.substack.com. And there are several things that bother me about this letter. And, a skeptical person would say, okay, it's, got the CDC logo on there. It's got the U.S. Census Bureau logo, and we have been kind of manipulated into thinking that we have to reply to these, what they look like, official government documents. But there are a lot of concerns. And let me just say right off the bat, you don't have to answer it, even though they are telling you that this is important information and that they have the authority by law to collect it. That's different than you having to be coerced into giving that information away. I mean, whatever happened to our privacy? And why should the government be sticking its big fat nose into our individual health choices and status anyway? It doesn't make any sense. Here's what troubles me about it. First of all, medical privacy. As you saw in that letter, they can release your information. They might not put your name, but they're going to put that into a big fat database, and they will have access to you and your address and your answers. Who in the non-spinning world is going to give them this information? So they're going to say, oh, yes, we're going to keep it confidential, but you're going to give your health information. You're going to give your household information. You're going to give your demographics. You're going to talk about your health insurance. They're going to be asking questions about employment, about whether or not you're on disability. All of that you're going to be giving over willingly to a federal agency? Well, that would be a big fat no. But think about people, maybe even someone you know. Maybe you have an elderly relative or a young person who doesn't know that this information doesn't have to be given. And of course, our society elevates this altruism that you're doing it for the good of others. And so you're like, oh, I want to voluntarily participate. Well, you don't have to, especially if you value your medical privacy. It really bothers me that they put the U.S. Census Bureau logo on this along with the CDC. And of course, they're trying to legitimize the CDC. I can't imagine that any healthy American would ever answer this. Now, I've got a couple of other very serious concerns, but I do want to let you know that this video is going to be a little bit different because I am broadcasting live. So if you missed the beginning, what I'm going to do is after this video airs, I'm going to download it and I'm going to add on a part 2, which is a video that I did a while ago about another official letter coming from the government. And I was pressured by the government to answer it as a business owner. And I want to tell you about some creative answers that people are giving to these documents. And I must say that I am at the top of my snark game in this video that I'm going to add on to this live after it airs. I hope you followed what I'm going to do. So there will be another video uploaded for you a little bit later, not as a live, but as a regular video. And you'll be able to see this part 2 document that I covered and my snarky answers. But first of all, these documents are voluntary. You don't have to answer it, especially if you're concerned about medical privacy. The other thing that really bothers me, and I think this is the overarching concern I have for all of the government intervention and the imposition and how they inflict their horrible ways upon us. It's a process or a principle called incrementalism. Let me know if you're familiar with that. It's where they roll things out slowly but surely, and they condition you to accept it as normal. Think about all of those psyops that I've broken down, all of the blatant, obvious crisis actors that they have, the victims and the survivors and the witnesses that can't keep a straight face because they're thinking about the big fat paycheck that they're going to be collecting. And they know that they're trying to dupe you. So there's that little bit of they've got one up on you. I've broken that down again and again. And I've told you that they're conditioning you with all of this media coverage that's confusing. They are always using the words chaotic and, panic and terror and all of that. And they never show you any bodies, any blood, any bullets. None of the witnesses are anyone that can be verified. They can't be believed, but they do this again and again and again to condition you to believe that these things on the media, that's how it happens. There's never any blood. There's never any bodies. There's never any bullets. So that's a type of incrementalism that they're doing with all of this public health data. First of all, they want you to believe that there's such a thing as public health. Now, listen, you might even have a degree in public health or know someone that does, but you have to admit that health is individual. Whether or not you have a headache has nothing to do with whether or not someone else has a headache or a stomach ache or arthritis. It is all individual. I did a video for you last week about these laws in Florida, and some of them were good, some of them were bad, and some of them were downright ugly. And one of the ugliest bills, aside from saying that you're a terrorist if you support certain groups that are in opposition to this country in the Middle East that a lot of our politicians support, that you would be labeled a terrorist. That was a pretty bad law. One of the other worst laws was that the doctors are required to give to the state government information about people that have Parkinson's. Why in the non-spinning world should that be? The state says that they want to improve Parkinson treatments and medications. They want to track people and see where in the state people have Parkinson's. Why? I don't think that's any of the government's business at all. But this is the incrementalism. It's like a slow creep. First, they want health statistics information. And you're like, well, gosh, they said that my name's not going to be released. So maybe I'll do something good for the good of others, and I'll give them my health information because maybe that will help the federal government decide where they want to spend money on certain programs, where the health priorities are. But, I am not in favor of that. The government should get its big fat nose out of our health business, period. Now, they say in this document that your participation is voluntary, but they bury that at the very end of the letter. And the good news is you don't have to participate, even if they send you a second letter, which my healthy American told me that the CDC did. They sent her another letter saying, we didn't get your responses. Well, some people are going to cave and they are going to give that information up. What really bothers me is the coercive language. It says, let's go back to that again, that letter, and let me know if you see what I see. And this is really what bothers me. It says, the information you provided is confidential. Okay, that's going to put some people's fears at rest. But then it says, the NCHS and the US Census Bureau are required by law. People are going to read that. They're going to think that they're required by law to answer. And It looks very official. There's the QR code. That's the other thing that bothers me. Many people don't want to participate in a QR code. I certainly don't. And it is another thing that I will say about this, and why I certainly wouldn't participate, is the potential for a data breach. I'm really stuck on this sentence that says we are not permitted to publicly release your responses in a way that could identify your household, which means we are permitted to publicly release your responses as long as they don't give your address or your name. And I think them are pretty rotten apples. Let me see if I have anything else here on my list of what bothers me. Well, the biggest thing of it's none of their business. That's the bottom line. It's none of the government's business what your health status is, whether or not you're on disability, if you are employed or unemployed, how many people are in your household. And if you want to hear when I'm at my snarky best and I give my answers, as if you wanted to kind of mess with them a little bit and go on and do this, although I wouldn't do it, and I'm not recommending that you do it, but some people want to, give some creative answers. And I'm going to do this part 2 video for you, where I'll tell you exactly how I would answer one of these surveys and give some creative responses. And I recently received a US Census Bureau lengthy survey. We're going to look at that in just a moment. And honestly, I thought it was a scam. She said, I'm fairly certain the next census is 2030. Well, apparently now there's something called the American Community Survey. And it says that we're required by law to complete it. Of course, it's beyond invasive. I asked several neighbors and friends about the current US Census American Community Survey, and they had not gotten one. She said, now I've gotten a final notice to complete it, or someone will come knocking at my door. Anyway, we'll see what happens. My husband thinks they don't have the people to go knocking on people's doors. What do you think about it? What's the history behind it? Why are they doing it? What happens to people who refuse to participate? I would love to hear your insight on it. With gratitude and blessings, Cynthia. P.S. I love your rants. Cynthia, I love hearing from you. So grateful to have you on board. And I did a little digging, and I will say that as a business owner, I got one of these surveys as well, and they kept hounding me, harassing me to give them information. And I finally, reluctantly, gave some creative responses. And after I completed it online, I still kept getting the letters saying that I hadn't completed it. So rest assured that the US Census Bureau is a giant bureaucracy, and it's highly unlikely that anyone will come knocking at your door. But what I want to show you is the US censorship. How about them apples? The US Census. Gee, that was a little Freudian slip, wasn't it? And here we have it, the United States Census Bureau. And I did a little digging to see what Cynthia had gotten. And it is, this is what it's called, the ACS, American Community Survey. And look at this ACS data users group. Take a look at that little logo. And it put me in mind of these other logos of the New World Disorder. I did a video on that some time ago. I do need to give an apology to a healthy American who said, Peggy, I had a logo made for my company and you showed it on your screen, and I am not a part of the New World Disorder. So I wrote him back and I said, I'm glad you set the record straight. It just goes to show how common this type of logo is, and how sadly more and more people are going along with it. And I guess it's connecting the clots, as I say. So anyhow, that is one of the things that they have here in their survey database. And what I did is I clicked through to the actual survey. Now, I want to look at this, and then I want to share with you the law that they are threatening you with. And you know what I like to do? I like to read between the lies. And my understanding of this law is a little bit different from what the American Census Bureau is showing you. So here we go. This is not a census. This is a survey, an American Community Survey. And apparently it's random because Cynthia's neighbors did not get it. So they want all of your information, your phone number, number of people that live in this address. So it's sent to your address. And I'd like to know if the new American visitors that have just arrived, if they are filling anything out. So they want to know your ethnic origin, right? They want the names of every person. They want their race. Hello, I thought we weren't going by races anymore. There's only one race. I would put human race, human race, human race in each of these answers. There is only one race. It is the human race. Yes, there are different skin colors. There are different nationalities, ethnic backgrounds, traditions, but one race. All right. I think this is really, what do you think? Here it says, what is the person number one sex? And you only get to choose male or female. Well, wait a minute. I thought we had an endless choice. Can I be offended by this option of just male or female? That is not very woke, excuse me, or inclusive or diverse or equitable, as we're told that we should. All right. And it goes on. I'm just increasing the size a little bit. It's got the second person's name. They want information on every single person living at that address. And then if they want to know how they are related to you, who is filling it out. And here we go again. Biological son or daughter? Well, does that mean? What does that mean? I thought we didn't have sons and daughters anymore. That's rather narrow-minded of whoever put this survey together. How do you know if it's a biological? Does that? Come on now. Mother or father? I thought we were saying parent one and parent two. Let's get with the program now, shall we? So I would scratch that out and say parent one and parent two. Like I said, some people are getting very creative. Some other race. Well, we know that there are some people now that identify as dogs and cats, maybe even aliens. I suppose they could write that down as well. Oh, by the way, couldn't you identify as, if you wanted to, like I do, for example? I forgot to mention, I am fully immunized. Yes, just like God made me. I want to go on the record to state that I am just like God made me. And, but if you wanted to identify as fully immunized, I suppose you could. Couldn't you? I thought we were identifying as anything we wanted to these days. Reality doesn't matter anymore. So it goes on to have the same information for all the additional people. I think it goes on for 7 individuals. Oh no, here we go. Person 10, person 11, and 12. Now they want to know about your home. So are you in a mobile home, a one family house? Detached? It goes on and on and on. I don't see anything here, excuse me, it's not very inclusive for the outdoor people. And I say that with all sincerity. We have healthy Americans that have chosen to live off the grid. Oh, here we go. Boat, RV, van, etc. So I guess that is inclusive, but what about if you are not even in one of those? You're just an outdoor person. What if you are in a shipping container? Like in Lahaina, where they want to put you. Then they want to know how many acres are on your property. How about your agricultural products? Gee, that sounds like exactly the information you want the federal government to have. How many separate rooms are in this house? Now, let's not go drawing conclusions that they want to bring the new visitors, the new Americans who are visitors that are going to be permanent visitors that are taking cash handouts from your tax money. Yes, let's not draw any conclusions that the federal government wants to know exactly how many homes you might have available for these new Americans. No, I would never do that. How many of these rooms are bedrooms? Holy smokes. It goes on and on and on. We're halfway through. It's very, very invasive. Do you have hot and cold running water, a bathtub or a shower? What about your internet? How many automobiles do you have? Do you use any computers, smartphone, tablet? It goes on and on. This one really rubs me the wrong way. Which fuel is used most in heating this house, apartment, or mobile home? All right. Yes, I'm sure that's exactly the information that you want the federal government to have. And they are going to harass and intimidate you and tell you that you're going to be thrown into jail or have a $5,000 fine, which is not true. I'm going to show that to you in just a moment. They want to know the cost of your electricity. Are you in a, let me just decrease the size a tiny bit so we can see it. Are you a part of an HOA? It goes on and on and on. What's your monthly rent? What was the cost for your energy? Did you receive any food stamp or supplemental nutrition assistance program? I'm sure you want to give all this information to the federal government, don't you? And then how much do you think your house and your property is worth? What are your mortgage payments? Friends, I can't imagine anyone, well, let me say, except for those that are human pincushions and like what the government tells them to do and go along with what the government tells them to do. I can't imagine anyone wanting to go along with this. And you have the information about attending school. Where were you born? Are you a citizen? I'm sure all of that's going to be filled out completely accurately with no creative answers whatsoever. They want to know about your education, your diploma. This is absolutely stunning to me. What about the language? Do you speak English well? What other languages do you speak? This is unbelievably invasive. Now they want to know about your health insurance. Are you paying for your health coverage? Do they receive tax credits? What is your marital status? Have you been married, widowed, divorced? I mean, this is absolutely stunning. How about this? Because of a physical, mental, or emotional condition, does this person have serious difficulty concentrating, remembering, or making decisions? It goes on and on and on. Let me know in a comment if I'm off base, if there is any reason whatsoever that the government needs this information. They want to know about your military history. They want to know about grandparents. I can't, do they have anything about dogs and cats? Are you working? How much were you paid? How many people usually ride to work in a car or truck or van? Oh my gosh, this looks like it's gearing us up for those 15-minute smart cities. They want to know about your employment. Are you working for profit, nonprofit, local government, state government? On and on it goes. Your Social Security, your railroad retirement, your income, all of your wages, salary, commissions. This is absolutely stunning. And then you can go on and have the same information for the other person or people in your homes. Now, here's what happens when you do a search and you say, am I required to follow this? I'm just going to type it in right now. Do I have to answer the census? All right. And you hear, I'm just going to do a giggle search because it's so very funny. We'll see what they're telling the rest of the world. And here we have it. It says, am I required to fill out? Now, this is a census form. This is different than the American survey. It says refusal to respond can result in a fine. However, no one has been prosecuted for failing to respond to the census since 1970. And even on this, let's do I think there's FAQs here as well. I may have come across it earlier, but it does say, actually, let me find that for you, friends. All right, here we go. Under the question, do I have to respond to the American Community Survey? That's what I showed you. It's from the Census Bureau, but it is not a census. And the answer is yes, you are legally obligated to answer all the questions as accurately as you can. Now, can you already read between the lines here? You're legally obligated to answer all of the questions if you are answering them as accurately as you can. And then it gives these laws, and we're going to click right through Title 18 USC Section 3571. And I did that previously, and it says it has crimes and criminal procedure for failure to follow a federal statute. And it goes on and on for misdemeanors, different fines. This is not specific to the census whatsoever. And then it has another Section 3559, which is a classification of offenses, crimes, and criminal procedure. But again, it has nothing to do with actually whether or not you have to fill out this form. They are trying to bamboozle you. And then it says this amends Title 13, Section 22, and it says refusal or neglect to answer questions or false answers. Whoever, being over 18 years of age, refuses or willfully neglects when requested by the secretary or any other authorized employee of the Department of Commerce or Bureau acting under them, it says if they have not if they refuse or willfully neglect, blah, 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 they shall be fined no more than $100. Now that was amended, so now it is up to $5,000, but this is for the census. And this information that I just showed you is not a census. It is a survey. And I looked at the different laws, and here is the law that they are relying on. It says the secretary shall take, compile, and publish censuses of manufacturers, of mineral industries, and of other businesses. You are a private individual. You do not fall into that category. Here's another one that they are citing. The secretary may make surveys deemed necessary to furnish annual and other interim current data on the subjects covered by the census provided for in this title. You are not participating in the US Census. It is a community survey. Again, this is a refusal to answer questions affecting companies, businesses, religious bodies, and other organizations. That does not apply to you. And here is where they are giving you the fine for, let's see, applicability of penal provisions in certain areas. And as I stated, friends, no one has been penalized for this since 1970. Gee, I ain't too good at math, but isn't that like over 50 years? So I wouldn't worry about giving over all of this private information to the federal government. What say you? Did you get one of these? If you did, what were your answers like? I would love to hear it. Curious minds want to know. Thank you, everybody, for being on board. Remember to join me, the free Substack, peggyhall.substack.com. I could not do this important work without you, and I look forward to seeing you in an upcoming broadcast.